Imagine I'm writing this as a spoken narrative, so you can deliver it naturally without needing to break it into rigid sections. Boundaries. The word alone can feel heavy, even intimidating. But in reality, boundaries are one of the most powerful acts of self-care we can practice in our daily lives. Too often, we think of self-care as something external: candles, spa days, vacations. And while those things can be refreshing, the deepest form of self-care is invisible. It's how we protect our energy, our time, and our mental well-being. It's how we learn to say no without guilt, and how we communicate what we need without apology. Boundaries are not walls. They are bridges to healthier relationships with ourselves and with others. Think about it. How many times have you said yes when you really wanted to say no? How often have you overextended yourself because you were afraid of disappointing someone? Or maybe you've stayed silent when something bothered you, only to feel resentment build up inside. This isn't just a personal struggle, it's a universal one. And psychologists have been clear: chronic lack of boundaries can lead to burnout, anxiety, stress, and even physical health problems. That's how powerful this is. Establishing boundaries begins with one simple truth: you are responsible for your own well-being. That means your time, your emotions, your body, and your energy are valuable, and they deserve protection. Imagine your life as a house. The boundaries you set are the locks on the doors, the fences around the yard, the welcome mat at the front porch. You decide who enters, how long they stay, and under what conditions. Without boundaries, it's like leaving every door and window open for anyone to walk in. And eventually, chaos takes over. But here's the thing: setting boundaries isn't about being harsh, rude, or selfish. In fact, it's the opposite. Boundaries are about honesty. They're about showing up authentically, saying what you mean, and allowing others to know who you really are. Without them, relationships often suffer because resentment replaces connection. When you set a boundary, you're actually giving people the chance to respect you more deeply. Now, here's where it gets challenging. Many of us grew up learning that setting boundaries was selfish or mean. Maybe we were taught to always put others first, or to avoid conflict at all costs. But what happens when your cup is always empty? You can't pour into others if you're drained yourself. Psychologists often say that boundaries are not a rejection of others. They're an acceptance of yourself. They're how you ensure that you can continue to give, love, and contribute without losing yourself in the process. So, how do we actually start setting boundaries? First, we have to get clear on our own limits. Ask yourself, what drains me? What makes me feel resentful? What situations make me uncomfortable, anxious, or stressed? These feelings are clues that a boundary is needed. For example, maybe you notice you feel exhausted every time a coworker offloads their problems onto you during lunch. Or maybe a family member constantly criticizes your choices, leaving you feeling small. These are signals. Your emotions are trying to tell you where your boundaries should be. Next, communicate those boundaries. This is the step most people struggle with because it feels scary to be direct. But communication is key, and it doesn't have to be aggressive. In psychology, one of the most effective techniques is called assertive communication. Assertiveness means expressing your needs calmly and respectfully, without apologizing for them. You might say, "I value our friendship, but I can't talk about work problems every night. It leaves me drained." Or, "I need you to stop commenting on my weight. It's not helpful for me." Notice how these statements are clear, direct, but not hostile. They focus on your needs, not on attacking the other person. Another critical part of boundaries is consistency. The first time you set a boundary, people might push back. They may not like it, but that's normal. Every time you reinforce your boundary calmly and firmly, you teach others how to treat you. Remember, people don't have to like your boundaries, but they do need to respect them. And if someone refuses to, that tells you something important about the health of that relationship. It's also important to recognize that boundaries come in different forms. There are physical boundaries, like who gets access to your body, your personal space, or your possessions. There are emotional boundaries, like deciding what kinds of conversations you're willing to engage in and what kind of emotional weight you're willing to carry. There are time boundaries, how much of your schedule you give away to others versus how much you reserve for yourself. And there are even digital boundaries, like how much access people have to you on social media or whether you respond instantly to messages. Each type matters because each protects a different part of your life. And here's the beauty of boundaries. Once you start practicing them, you realize how liberating they are. Suddenly, you're not saying yes out of guilt. You're not overcommitted, exhausted, or resentful. Instead, you're giving yourself permission to live authentically, to protect your peace, and to prioritize your well-being. That's why boundaries are self-care at the deepest level. They reduce stress. They improve relationships. They give you energy for the things that truly matter. One thing I want you to remember, boundaries don't need to be explained endlessly. You don't owe anyone a 10-paragraph justification. Sometimes a simple no is enough. No, I can't make it. No, that doesn't work for me. And that's okay. You are allowed to take up space in this world without apology. That's what healthy self-respect looks like. Let's take a moment to talk about guilt, because whenever we set boundaries, guilt usually shows up. We worry that people will think we're selfish, difficult, or uncaring. But guilt is just an old habit. It's your brain trying to protect you from rejection or conflict. The truth is, the people who genuinely care about you will respect your boundaries. The ones who don't, they're benefiting from your lack of them. And that's worth thinking about. So, as you reflect on your own life, I want to leave you with this. Boundaries are not about keeping people out. They're about inviting the right people in. They're about saying yes to yourself, so that every yes you give to others comes from a place of choice, not obligation. When you set boundaries, you're not pushing love away. You're making space for healthier, stronger, and more balanced connections. If you've been struggling with this, start small. Choose one boundary to practice this week. Maybe it's saying no to a commitment you don't have energy for. Maybe it's turning your phone off at a certain hour. Maybe it's telling someone kindly but firmly what you need. Practice it, hold it, and notice how it feels. Over time, boundaries become second nature. And when that happens, you'll find that life feels lighter, calmer, and more in alignment with who you really are. So, if you take away one thing from today's video, let it be this. Boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are self-love in action. And self-love is the foundation of a healthy, fulfilling life. Protect your energy, protect your peace, and never be afraid to put yourself first when it matters most.